Right now, you probably think owning one XRP is easy. It's less than a few dollars. You can buy it on almost any exchange with some spare change in your pocket. But what if I told you that in the very near future, owning just one single XRP will be a luxury that 99% of the global population will never achieve? I know it sounds like a clickbait headline, but there is a massive hidden shift happening in the plumbing of global financial system that makes this warning a very real possibility. Now, we are not just talking about the price pumping. We're talking about a fundamental change in how money moves across the planet. You see 100 billion tokens. That's the number that everyone points to when, well, they want to tell you why XRP will never be valuable. They look at that supply and they just think there's just too much of it. It's common. It is cheap. But that is the very first trap. The 100 billion number is actually a distraction from the real, or at least the real issue, which is the reality of liquidity. You see, most of those tokens, they're not actually sitting in a pool just waiting for you to buy them. No. A massive chunk is actually held in escrow by Ripple. Another huge portion is held by OG whales who haven't moved a coin in over a decade. But the real supply shock isn't coming from people holding, it is coming from what XRP is actually designed to do. Think about the water that's in your house. You don't think about the pipes until they burst. XRP is the pipe. It's the oil for the global financial engine. When banks start using it for cross-border settlements, they aren't buying it to hold it, like you and I do. No, they are going to be using it as a bridge. They need massive amounts of liquidity to move billions of dollars in seconds. Now, if the global financial system shifts onto the XRP ledger, that 100 billion supply starts to look incredibly small. We're talking about replacing a system, SWIFT, that handles roughly $5 trillion every single day. And if you want to move $5 trillion using a bridge asset, well, that bridge asset needs to have a massive value, or there just simply isn't enough, or there won't be enough of it to actually go around. Now, this is where the 99% warning really starts to make sense. We have to look at who is actually pulling the strings here. For years, the retail crowd, people like us, have been the primary owners of XRP. We've endured the lawsuits, the FUD, and the price stagnation. But the era of the retail dominance, it is coming to an end. Enter the institutional players. Now, they don't really care about your moon bags or your Lambo dreams. They care, though, about efficiency and cost cutting. And when Ripple has been systematically building this infrastructure for these kind of players to take over the network. Now, you've probably heard about RLUSD, Ripple's new stablecoin. A lot of people thought that was the end for XRP. They thought, why use XRP if, well, they have a stablecoin? But that's actually because most people don't fully understand how a bridge actually works. So you see, the stablecoin itself is the container, but XRP, that is the fuel and the connector. By introducing RLUSD, Ripple is actually making it easier for banks to use the XRP ledger without having to deal with all the volatility themselves. They use the stablecoin for the value, but the XRP ledger handles the settlement. So every time that a transaction happens on this particular ledger, a little tiny bit of XRP is burned. It is gone forever. Now, just imagine millions of transactions happening every single hour as the world's banks start to move money. Well, the supply isn't just big, it is now shrinking. And as the big players move in, they aren't going to just buy their XRP from a crypto exchange like you and I do. No, they're going to source it from deep liquidity pools. The XRP that you hold in your wallet right now is essentially a golden ticket to a system that is being walled off from the general public. Why will 99% of people never own a single XRP? Well, it's not just because the price might go up, it's actually because the system is designed to shake you out before it even gets there. Psychology is the biggest barrier to wealth. We've seen this pattern over and over again. When the price of XRP starts to move, really move, people, or at least most people, they will sell. Now, if you bought at 50 cents and it hits $5, well, you are looking at a 10x gain. You'll think to yourself, I'm a genius, and you'll sell to pay off their car or even your mortgage. But then it hits $50, then $100, and then $500. And by the time the real institutional price kickers happen, right? Yeah, the retail crowd will have already handed their keys back to the big banks. Now, the banks, they want your XRP. They need it for their liquidity pools. They will use every trick in the book. Scary little headlines, price dumps, and long periods of boredom. They're all to make sure that you don't hold onto your assets. Now, we are living through a period of forced patience. The people who get it are the ones who realize that XRP is not a stock. It's not even a currency in the way that we think of like Bitcoin, for example. It is a piece of the global financial infrastructure. So if you owned a tiny percentage of the internet's fiber optic cables in 1995, well, we would have sold them because, well, they didn't go up in value for 3 years. You probably wouldn't have done, would you? No. You would realize that the world was still being wired up. Well, that is where we are with XRP. Let's get into the mechanics of why this one XRP claim is being made by the experts. It comes down to the standardization of value. Now, the world is moving away from the old way of doing things. The United States dollar is facing a few challenges. Inflation is eating away at every local currency on Earth. The old guard needs a way to move value that doesn't rely on the slow, expensive, and outdated correspondent banking system. Now, if XRP becomes the global bridge, well, its price is no longer determined by retail speculation. It is determined by the total amount of value that it needs to transport. Now, if the world needs to move $100 trillion of value a year, and there are only, a few billion XRP available to active, at least inactive liquidity, well, the math dictates the price that most people probably can't even wrap their heads around. Now, at that point, XRP, it won't be something that you buy on a Sunday afternoon. It will be something that is held by the central banks, massive corporations, and sovereign wealth funds. But the regular person to own just one XRP would be like a regular person today trying to own a piece of the SWIFT network's internal code. It just won't be there for sale. Now, I do have to pause here for just a second to let you know that I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for entertainment and education. The crypto market, as you may have noticed, is volatile and you genuinely could lose everything. So you have to do your own research and consult a qualified professional if you can. At the end of the day, your money is your responsibility. Now, the warning that we're discussing is actually based on a very specific vision of the future. It's a vision where Ripple wins. The XRP ledger becomes the global standard and the world's financial elite adopt this technology. Now, while the signs are pointing in that direction, nothing in this world is ever guaranteed. So you have to be comfortable with the risks before you even think about the reward. One of the most overlooked parts of the XRP story is the automated market maker, or the AMM. Now, this is a massive update to the XRP ledger that allows anyone to provide liquidity and earn in return. But think about what this does to the circulating supply. When you put your XRP into an AMM, it is working. It is part of the plumbing. It is not just sitting on an exchange ready to be sold at the click of a button. Now, as more people and institutions use this liquidity pools to earn, or these liquidity pools to earn some yield, well, the available supply of XRP for new buyers shrinks even further. Now, we are moving towards a liquidity black hole. The more that the network is used, the more XRP is sucked out of the open market and into these functioning roles. Now, this is how you get a supply shock. It's not just that people are holding, it's that the asset is being put to work in a way that makes it unavailable for casual trading. Now, if you want to stay ahead of these technical shifts and understand how the AMM and institutional bridges actually work, then, we do talk about this stuff every single day in our community. We do have a free educational Discord where we track these assets and the smart money moves in real time. It is a place to cut through the noise and focus on the data. And if you are looking for a more structured way to master these concepts, everything from ledger mechanics to macroeconomics, then you should probably check out 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗋. It is where we've put deep dive courses for people who are serious about being more than just a spectator in the shift. I'm going to put the links in the description down below, both for the free educational Discord and the 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗋. Now, there are several courses that are available on the 𝗗𝗶𝘀 completely free of charge. Definitely do recommend checking them out. We now have to talk about the villain in this story. You see, for years, the SEC has been the primary antagonist. They sued Ripple, they claimed XRP was a security, and they effectively froze the asset's growth in the United States while the rest of the world moved forward. But was the lawsuit just a legal battle, or was it a strategic delay? While the retail public was distracted by the court filings and the Twitter drama, what was actually happening behind the scenes? Ripple was opening offices in Dubai, Singapore, and London. They were putting and partnering up, I should say, with central banks of Ireland and the National Bank of Georgia. They were building the global South financial bridge. The lawsuit, it acted as a bit of a filter. It scared away the weaker hands and the institutional money that is bound by strict regulations. But now that the legal clarity is here, the floodgates are opening. The warning is that the window to buy cheap XRP, or even available XRP, existed during a lot of the confusion and the boring times that we find ourselves in now. But once all that confusion is gone and once the boredom is gone, the price reflects the reality. And the reality is that there is not enough XRP for everyone to own some. There is a theory, one that used to be dismissed as a conspiracy, but is now being discussed in serious financial circles. The XRP is being positioned as a world reserve asset. Now, not a currency that you would use to buy bread, a reserve asset that banks use to back their own digital currencies. Now, if every country launched a central bank digital currency, a CBDC, or some kind of stablecoin, they would need a natural, decentralized asset to trade between them all. They cannot use the US dollar if they want to be truly independent. They cannot use each other's currencies because, well, there are some trust issues. No, they need a mathematical bridge, an asset that no one country actually controls, that moves at the speed of light and has a fixed supply. Well, XRP, it fits that description perfectly. If central banks start holding XRP on their balance sheets as a reserve, the idea of a retail investor owning just one XRP becomes almost absurd. Do you own a bar of gold held in the Federal Reserve? Some do, but most do not. Now, you might own paper representations of it, of course, or a tiny fraction of an ETF maybe, but owning the actual asset itself is rather rare. That's for the, architects of the system. Let's take a look at the how. How does this actually happen? Now, it happens through ISO 20022. Now, this is the new global standard for financial messaging. It is basically a new language that all of the world's banks are switching to. XRP was one of the very first crypto assets to be ISO 20022 compliant. Now, this isn't just a technical detail, by the way. It actually means that the XRP ledger can talk to the world's banking system seamlessly. When a bank in Tokyo wants to send value to a bank in Brazil, they don't have to worry about the language barrier anymore. They can use the XRP ledger to translate that value instantly. Now, why are we watching the wiring of the new financial world, if you will? Most people are actually looking at the price charts on their phones, wondering why it has not gone up 10% today. Well, they are actually missing the fact that the entire foundation of global finance is being rebuilt on top of the currency that they are holding. This is the open loop for the XRP story. Now, we know that the technology works. We know that the banks are testing it. We know that regulations are clearing up. Now, the only question left is how much of the plumbing will be left for the public once the system goes live. To be in the 1% who actually hold on to their XRP, you have to change how you think about money. Most people view crypto as a way to just get more fiat currency. They want more dollars, they want more euros, they maybe want more yen. But the experts are the ones that are issuing the warnings and see things slightly differently. They see the fiat currencies as a sinking ship. They see XRP as a bit of a lifeboat. Now, if you are waiting for XRP to hit a certain price so that you can get out and go back to dollars, well, you are essentially trading a fixed supply infrastructure asset for a limitless supply debt instrument. You see, the 99% that will sell, they will sell because they are focused on the exit. The 1% will hold because they realize that XRP is the destination. Now, in a world where everything is tokenized, real estate, stocks, gold, even your identity, the network that moves those tokens will be the most valuable thing on the planet. We are now approaching a point of no return. The warning isn't really about a market crash. It is about a market lockout, right? There will come a day when you go to your favorite crypto exchange to buy some XRP and you'll find out that the liquidity just is not there, or the spread is just so high that it is just kind of unaffordable. Or, more likely, the exchange will tell you that they only sell tokenized fractions of XRP because the asset itself is too valuable to move in a single unit. Now, we've seen this happen with Bitcoin to an extent. Most people today do not own a whole Bitcoin. They own sats, right? They own a tiny fraction. But Bitcoin is primarily just a store of value. XRP is a utility. Now, the demand for that utility, it comes from institutional world, will eventually far outweigh the supply available to the retail world. Now, if you're holding XRP right now, you are not just an investor. You are pre-institutional participant in a system that hasn't fully turned on just yet. The story of XRP is often told as a story of Ripple versus the world. But the real story is the old world versus the new world. The old world is slow, expensive, and exclusive. The new world, built on the XRP ledger, it is fast, it is cheap, and it's potentially even more exclusive once the gatekeepers realize what they have. You have the opportunity right now to be a part of that 1%, but it does require more than just buying a few tokens. It requires understanding the why. Why it requires the education that you can find at places like 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗋.com and real-time insights from our Discord server. Again, the links are in the description. Because when the 99% finally realize why they should have owned XRP, it will be already too late. The pipes will have sealed, the oil will be flowing, and the bridge will be closed to anyone who didn't get across while the gates were open. The warning then is simple. Don't let the abundance of today blind you to the scarcity of tomorrow. 100 billion tokens might seem like a lot, but in a world of 8 billion people and $400 trillion in global wealth, 100 billion is actually a drop in the ocean, especially when that drop is the only thing that can make the ocean move. Now, the transition from a retail speculative asset to a global institutional standard is the deep dark hole that we are currently in. It is confusing, it is very frustrating, and it is designed to make you give up. But on the other side of that hole is a revelation that will change the financial landscape forever. The question isn't whether XRP will be successful. The question is, when that success finally arrives, will you still be holding the keys? Or will you be a part of the 99% who are watching from the sidelines, wondering how you let the standard slip through your fingers? Now, this is the warning. The rest is really up to you, right? Take the time to learn, stay connected with the community, and remember that in the world of high-stakes finance, the biggest moves are when no one is actually looking, right? Don't be the person who sold the future to pay for the present. The 99% will never own one XRP. It is not necessarily a prediction of failure. It is a prediction of the ultimate utility. And in the world of value, utility is the only thing that actually lasts. Make sure that you're on the right side of history here. We'll see you in the Discord. We'll see you in the next chapter of this story. For now, you can stay sharp, do your research, and keep your eyes on the plumbing, because that is where the real power lies. For now, hit the like button, subscribe, and check out the video that's queuing up on the screen.